Power Zone this morning. Gents, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning to the listeners. I'm really excited to speak about this one here.
All right. How are you doing, No?
Great, thanks, man. I'm really excited.
Yeah.
10 times more excited than Level to speak about this one.
Nels always in competition.
So, yeah, you'll kind of give us a sense of where that excitement comes from. And if really indeed, then we can come through for our people here. Because like I said, the economy is just, grabbing all of us by, all parts of our bodies. And we try by all means to really be part of this economy, and part of our ambitions need to come through. And we often hear people saying that you need to really start somewhere, and for others, starting somewhere can be through meeting up with a team of like-minded people, and then just forming a Stokvel and then coming through for each other here. Give us an understanding, then let's start with you, Nell, of property Stokvels. What are they, and how do they then come about and fit into one's ambitions of one day wanting to own a property?
Okay, so when we're speaking about property Stokvels, Katla, right, we're speaking about a collective coming together so that they can start investing in property. So when you're looking at your Stokvels outside property, it was more of our parents or our grandparents coming together, saving, and then at the end of the year it will be for grocery.
The traditional Stokvel.
Yes.
So now we see Stokvels branching into other sectors of the economy, and property is one of them.
That's it. So you actually be shocked, Katleho, through the extensive research that you forced us to push, because when you call us to PowerFM, we have to give the best. That there's about 11 million people in South Africa that have been participating in property, in Stokvels. So now that tells you that it's about time that we start having this conversation. Hence, we're saying that we're really excited about it.
Yeah, but I'm glad that you pushed it up there and got us data and the numbers in terms of how then the interest. So it helps us gauge the interest, meaning that people then would take this and see this as an avenue that can help them attain a property. But really, when you look at it, there are some of those issues that would come through that one would have to take into consideration when they decide to form part of these property Stokvels. Doing my own research, I saw that there were issues around conveyancing attorneys that will have to come through here, issues around bond registration, those fees, the transfer costs as well. Those are some of the issues that you'll have to. So it's not a blank property Stokvel, and then you invest and then boom, you get the keys. That's your property. You go in at level.
So now I just want us to speak about where the property Stokvel stems from, right? So now you're looking at the guys that are actually doing it formal, and you're looking at how people are actually investing in property. So there's your real estate investment trust, right, which can be bought at GSE. Then you have your private equity, whereby, say for instance, if we have like 200 apartments and we are trying to raise funds, but now for these two, it's heavily regulated by law. So you need to have a financial service provider. So how property Stokvels actually came through is that we are trying to raise funds. However, we do not want to be guided by the way the system is actually doing, looking at the FSP. Right? So now what we are saying is that we are going to raise funds. However, now we are going to raise it under a property Stokvel, under a Stokvel. So now, at first, Stokvels were not regulated by the government. So now it's just that thing that, okay, we are all collecting money, and then we're going to be taking money at the end of the year, whereby some people are saying that we're buying groceries, others are saying that we are doing it for the nice time. But now, looking at what people have done right now, is that we have now said that we're collecting all of this money, however we're going to be buying properties. Now comes the factor that you're putting in, that what about the conveyances? What about all of these stuff? And what I would always say is that if you are going to go towards a property Stokvel, you need to understand that the person that's driving it is the one that has a huge influence on it. Because I can start a property Stokvel out of good intentions. However, if I do not understand what I'm doing, at the end of the day, it's going to catch up to everybody who has actually been putting the money into the fund.
So basically, you have to have somewhat of a holding person that, let's say, Knowing Wealth is the holding company that would be the one that is pushing all of these, because then all of us can't be holding companies and the likes. There have to be somewhat of someone that is driving this, and we all then rally under that umbrella in ensuring that this becomes a reality. Does this person have to be a financial service provider? Does this person have to be just a company that maybe you are an entrepreneur, and then you start a company that you register it, and then you would say that our interest here would be in construction or in Stokvel and the likes, and you position yourself in that sense, and then you see people then the money flowing into this space in a way that then you would have to declare some of these things with the banks to say, don't be shocked when you see all of these monies coming through, is because we are, this entity, and this is how we operate.
So as we did mention with the two, right, with the REITs and also the private equity, is that there we are investing in track record, and it's been proven for you to be on JSE, you need a couple of qualifications and track record. However, now when it comes to Stokvel, it's more of we have elected, or somebody who came up with this idea, we are investing in his vision. So that's where one of the major risk comes from, that yes, the person might have good intentions, or sometimes they might not even have good intentions. So with property Stokvel, it highly lies within the leadership.
So you basically, let's break down the risks then that are associated with going into this particular space, because then you see people online saying that a person just ran away with their money, and it's like that. I mean, those are the stories of Stokvels that we've seen. Even when we see greater efforts towards regulation, it's to close some of these gaps, to help people and to ensure issues of security around some of these investments. Let's talk about the risks associated with going into a property Stokvel, and how then can one make sure that there is value for what they are embarking on.
Yeah. So the risk is, like you said right now, whereby someone is running away with the money. However, sometimes the risk could also be that the person might have good intentions. So say, for instance, if I'm saying that I want to start this whole thing, however, I didn't project the finances correctly, and now we're in a situation whereby we have actually bought the property, we have started building on the property, however the project is not going anywhere, and now I have promised people that, okay, after let's say 6 months you'll start getting your dividends, or you'll start getting your money on a monthly basis. Now 6 months is here, and now I can't actually give money. Now for the person looking at it from the other side, it's going to be that, yeah, Neo is the one that's scamming me. Yeah, he's not giving me my money.
Guys are coming through with the promises. Yes.
So that's why we always say that if you are going to be investing in a Stokvel, you need to understand what you're putting yourself into, and you also need to understand the person that's driving this. As Neo did say, that the leadership is very important, because if the leadership doesn't understand what they're doing, it just collapses everything.
No.
The biggest risk for me, right, is that we need to understand, even when the property is being purchased, who is it going to be registered under? Because if we're just taking a back seat and saying that the leadership will do best, now we're putting ourselves at risk, because you might find out that, yes, this property was purchased, however, it's under that person's name. So now if it does happen that he passes away, that family is not going to be coming to us and saying that.
Because I wanted to say as well, the implications of that as well. How does it work at the deeds office? When things like this happen, those are some of the inherent risks. Maybe let's talk about and take it back a bit and talk about how property Stokvels work according to your understanding. Is it a matter of taking money every month and putting it into a kitty, and then we work towards buying property, and then we identify and say, guys, we are 20, we've managed to get a property here in Sandton, and then it's going at this rate or at this amount, and then we all rally behind raising that money, so we buy that property, and that property has to now come through for us in a way that we raise more funds to buy another property for another person. How does it work? Do we buy it for you as Nell, or do we buy it for the entity so that it raises funds, so we buy more properties, so at the end of the day we are property owners, or in terms of us having invested, but we don't see or live in these properties? How does it work? Does it what shape does it take? Because then it kind of tells you around the issues of the risks to say, if I am to occupy this space, obviously I would want the names there to be my names. So to kill these risks, maybe give us an understanding of how then it works when people actually start embarking on a property stokvel.
Okay. Remember, Katleho, they operate differently based on the leadership again. So someone would be that, let's register a company name and then organize at least 20 guys. Then if it's the 20 of us, now that company, we own that company, really 20. Then we're all contributing towards it. And then others would rather be more of, we are buying labor this year property. We're collecting, buying labor property this year. Next day it's somebody else. But all of them, they just have, for me, they have a risk element.
Because then also these stokvels, what happens now if I'm not able to keep up with my obligations? We're living in tough times. I'm retrenched, so I can't continue keeping up with this 20-year deal, because every year we're buying someone a property. So it means I am linked to all of you guys for 20 years, whereby every year I have to ensure that as much as I got my own property, Lebo has to get a property, now has to get a property, Rato has to get a property, Katlo has to, you know what I mean? So it's like a 20-year commitment that, you know, then one of the risks will be one dropping out. And then what happens here when one drops out? It's a tricky one.
It's a headache, because now it's what I was talking to Neo about, that what happens. I mean, I understand that, say for instance, if I was committed to this whole journey, right, and then on year number 10 it happens that I pass on,
then what happens?
and the property is registered. Let's say the property is registered in my name, but now what happens for the person that we were supposed to buy the property for? Then who's going to
There's still 9 more people that are waiting with bated breath to say, listen, in 2028 I'm going to be a property owner.
Exactly. So now it becomes a bit of a problem there. But I heard some guys saying that the property will still be owned under the stokvel. It's just that you would go in, you'd move into that property. So the only time it would be transferred into your name is when everybody has their property. Now there's a lot of risks towards it. Hence you were talking about the conveyancer, that the property lawyer is the one that's really important on this game, whereby we understand that if this happens, then what needs to actually happen.
So we all have to be on the same page here in terms of what then would lie or come out of these property stokvels, and how then those risks that are linked to it. Because then what happens if the main holder dies or passes on of this particular company, because we started as an umbrella and we are operating, and then their kids have no ambitions of continuing with these stokvels and whatnot, and the company, you see it ailing and then it shuts down. They can, and also when you go about it, does this person then register the company with all of you guys as part of the company, as directors and the likes, or is he only the sole director? You guys are just subsidiaries or whatnot. Something that then won't give you that inherent power at the end of it all. If then their kids come through to say that no, this company, as far as we know, as far as the system and whatnot, as far as we've checked it, it's owned by our dad and our dad alone. So what happens? So these are some of those considerations.
Okay. So remember, if it's run as a stokvel, there's going to be a board of people that actually make the decisions. So you'll have the treasurer, you'll have the chairman, you'll have the deputy chairman, and now it's not only based on one person. Because remember, if you want to open up a stokvel account, you don't just go alone. You have to have 5 people that are actually going there, and then they have to be like signatories, whereby we are saying that if we want to actually withdraw money, there needs to be at least 3 signatories. So now it would be the same with the stokvel, that if we are going to be starting the stokvel, they needs to at least have 5 people that are going to be sitting in the board. Then if one passes on, we know that we still have 4 people that will still drive this whole thing. But now the risk becomes that if the chairman or the person that started this whole thing is the one that knew how to identify the deals, and then that person passes on, then these 4 guys that are left behind didn't know what's going on. Then it becomes a bit of a problem, because we also understand there's also now a power struggle, that now that the chairman has left, who has to go in? Because now we have 20 million that we have to now see how do we actually direct.
It's a tricky one, but also then let's talk about the successes of it all, because it can't just be dark, and we can't just be talking about all of these risks and scaring people. Or if maybe this is someone that was like, listen, I'm gonna gather my people and then we're gonna go about it and put in 10 rand every day, so that even if it's a matter of us saying we rent a property and then after renting that property we sublet it or something like that, and we start small in that sense, then let's give them a little bit of hope to say that it is doable. How can they go about it in a way that it works for them? What are the success rates?
Sure, the success rate, it's a really difficult one to put a percentage to it, man. But I know a couple of them. Is
it popular here in South Africa, or it's something that we see it even being a global phenomenon?
Global, but it's not called Stokvel, of course. Right? The reason why I'd like to even say that, even when you're looking at the banking systems, there's a bank that uses this model that you can come through, and if it's the 12 of you guys wanting to buy one property, we do allow that. So I'd say that there is a success rate, but as Lewo did mention, you need that correct team behind. Without the correct team, it can go down.
Yeah, so there are a lot of considerations here, and I'm glad you touched on the banks, because some of them won't be welcoming to this kind of approach, because one then would have to take into consideration the fact that we don't get customers anymore that would want to get bonds and the likes. And we see all of these considerations around the repo rate then, and the movements here having to be some of those things that the property Stokvel owners or board members will have to take into consideration on how inflation and developments around the economy is going to affect the property space, and how this space is going to, let's say, look in the next 20 years, looking at the fact that it can't then just be the same today, 20 years to come. Chances are even the studio will be looking different in 20 years.
100%. So now when you're looking at it from a perspective that if we are coming through together to actually give money, chances are we're not going to. The reason why we're coming through together is that we are trying to avoid going to the bank and asking for money. So at least on one side, we would have actually decreased the expenses from the side of the repo rates going up or down, or looking at interest rates, right? But now we also need to understand the other side, the risk element of it. So at the end of the day, I would say that there are property Stokvels that are good and they're killing it, right? Yes. And now, on the other side, if you don't do your due diligence or your research properly, you might find yourself on the other side whereby you see your chairperson holding bottles at the club, and you're asking yourself that how
like this guy's in Dubai. How did he get to Dubai? Now we're struggling here to raise funds for the Stokvel. Now he's leaving it up.
So I think that's the struggle that you have to choose. That would I rather focus just on my repo rates and getting properties alone, or would I rather do my due diligence or do my research properly and then get the Stokvel that would actually work best for me?
So it's a catch-22. But there are success. In what Lewo said there are actually success stories to come out of this particular space.
Yeah.
And the economy, in this economy, looking at what has been happening, what would then be the motivations behind people going into these property spaces and these Stokvels? Because then also one would say that you have to take the economy into consideration in terms of all of these plans that you make.
Yeah. With credit score, and also a lot of people not being able to afford a property for 1 million, you get this opportunity whereby someone is saying, if we are saving Boma 5,000, or you can come through at 10,000, and let's have that conversation. So it does enable people to get in, especially looking at it from the lower end.
A little bit of flexibility.
Yes.
Then that, sure. Yeah, but like you're right, research, preparing yourself, getting to understand what you're letting yourself or getting yourself into, then that becomes very important. But more than anything else, having a lawyer that will be able to facilitate some of these things, because at the end of the day, there are a lot of personalities under the same umbrella. There are a lot of expectations, emotions, and you're dealing with different people. They have their own drives, their own ambitions, and it can really be tricky managing a group. So how then you go about it will then determine how you come out on the other side. So am I right?
You're 100% right. I would say that if you are going to be going into a Stokvel, just get the constitution that is running that whole Stokvel and then send it to your attorney or a conveyancer. I would rather look at a conveyancer because there are some attorneys that do not focus on property law. Get that constitution, take it to your conveyancer so that they go through it and understand that what are the pros and cons of going into this, so that you go into this open-mindedly, and hopefully that you make money there.
Yeah, you need a cispat in your life, so, so they're able to actually sift through all of these things, jargons, and it can be a tricky one. But if you are really looking to make it work, go at it and help each other out. The intentions and the motivations behind it, even from the days of our parents when they were doing it, have always been to build each other, to help support each other, bring each other together and unite under the same vision and make it work. Come through for each other in a way that you would eliminate all of these insecurities or gaps that may come through to push this project to the side